Captain Jiho Lee stood at the bridge of the Terra Nova, Earth's newest and most advanced warship. He was a tall man, his face hard and focused. His black uniform was crisp, the symbol of the United Earth Forces on his shoulder gleaming in the dim light. He had been a military officer for nearly 20 years, and the weight of command had never felt heavier. The Terra Nova was in orbit around the unknown planet, and in the distance, a strange, glowing ship floated silently. It was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Its shape was smooth, almost organic, and it pulsed with a soft light. There were no visible weapons or engines, just the quiet hum of advanced technology. Captain Lee came the voice of his communications officer. "Lieutenant Juan Kim, we've detected a signal coming from the alien ship. It's weak, but it's definitely a communication attempt. The Janara are trying to make contact." Jiho nodded. His hands gripped the edge of the command console, but his eyes stayed focused on the alien vessel. The Janara, a species humanity had never encountered before. Their ships had been seen from a distance, but this was the first time they had gotten close. Earth had sent an exploratory team to make contact, but nobody had expected things to move so fast. The Janara had been waiting, but for what? "Send a message back," Jiho ordered. "Tell them we acknowledge their communication, and we're ready to establish a dialogue." Guan hesitated for a moment before nodding. Captain Lee turned his attention to the large screen ahead of him, where the alien ship grew larger. It was beautiful in its own way, like something from another world. The Janara had sent no ambassadors, no translators. They simply appeared. And now, Jiho was about to make history by leading humanity into first contact. But something felt off. His instincts, honed through years of military service, told him that there was more to this encounter than it seemed. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alarm blaring across the bridge. "Sir, we've received another signal," Jiwan said urgently, her fingers flying over the controls. "This one is much stronger." "It's a targeting signal. It's locking onto our ship." The crew fell silent, the gravity of the moment sinking in. Jiho's heart pounded. Could this be some kind of trap? Were the Janara really attacking, or was this a mistake? His mind raced, but he knew what had to be done. Prepare to fire. Jiho ordered, his voice steady despite the rising tension. "If they're targeting us, we won't wait for them to strike first." Ji-Wan's eyes widened. "Captain, we don't know if this is an attack. It could be a misunderstanding. They might be sending us some kind of peaceful signal. We don't take chances." Jiho cut her off, his voice cold and firm. "I've seen too many situations where hesitation costs lives. Prepare the cannons now." The crew scrambled into action, but Jiho could sense the unease in the air. He didn't enjoy making these decisions, but he was trained for this. His job was to protect Earth at all costs. And if this was a threat, he would eliminate it before it had a chance to strike. The targeting system locked in place. And a single thought passed through Jiho's mind. Fired, the Terra Nova's weapon systems roared to life. The ship's massive cannons unleashed a barrage of energy blasts toward the alien ship, 8 shot lighting up the dark expanse of space. The beams streaked through the void, cutting the silence of the encounter with the sharp hiss of energy. The crew watched in tense silence, waiting for a response. "Minutes passed, Captain," Guan said, her voice trembling. "The alien ship. It's still there. No movement. No counterattack. There's no sign of damage." Jiho stared at the screen, his gut twisting with doubt. Had they hit the ship? Was this really an attack? Or had they made a mistake? Just then, another message came through. It wasn't a threat, but something much more confusing. "Captain," Jiwan said, her voice strained. "The message it's coming through. But it's not like anything we've ever seen before." "It's a pattern, not a language." Jiho's brow furrowed. "A pattern?" "Yeah," Gaiwan continued. "It's almost like a mathematical equation. But it's not something we can decode easily." Too advanced for us? Jiho exhaled slowly, leaning back in his chair. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. If they had made a mistake, if this wasn't an attack, then they might have just destroyed their first chance at peaceful contact with an alien species. The military protocol had been clear. Shoot first. Ask questions never. But now, standing on the edge of this new reality, Jiho wasn't so sure that was the right way anymore. I'll take responsibility for this, Jiho said, his voice soft but firm. Contact the science division. I want everything they have on the Janara. Get me a team of experts. Yes, Captain, Juwan replied, as Jiho sat back in his chair. He couldn't help but wonder what kind of species the Janara were. What had they been trying to tell humanity? And more importantly, had their first contact been a mistake? His thoughts were interrupted by the voice of Dr. Minji Park, the ship's xenobiologist. Captain Lee, I've been analyzing the pattern, Dr. Park said as she walked into the bridge. It's strange, but I think it's some kind of communication attempt. Not hostile, at least not intentionally. Jiho turned to her, his eyes narrowing. What do you mean? We've just fired on them. How can this be peaceful? Minji stepped forward, her brow furrowed in concentration. I'm not sure. But the pattern is mathematical, like I said. It doesn't resemble any language we know. It could be an attempt to initiate contact. Jiho sighed deeply. This was not what he had expected. I'll need a full analysis, he said. But for now, keep this quiet. We don't need a panic. Let's just hope we haven't doomed ourselves. As Mingi nodded and turned to leave, Jiho's thoughts raced. This first contact was supposed to be a milestone for humanity, something to be remembered for generations. But now, it was a tangled mess of uncertainty. Had he made the right call? Or had his quick decision led them down a path that could spark intergalactic war? The truth was, Jiho didn't know. Captain Jiho Lee paced the bridge of the Terra Nova, his thoughts tangled in confusion and regret. The vastness of space stretched out before him, but he couldn't shake the feeling of having made the wrong decision. The alien ship that had once seemed like a promising first contact now hovered, ominously in his mind. The initial strike had been quick and decisive, just as military protocol dictated. But now, with no clear response from the Janara, Jiho began to question everything. Was the ship truly hostile, or had he acted out of fear, misunderstanding the alien intentions? His gut told him there was more to this situation than he had first realized. But the weight of his orders still pressed down on him. Captain, Lieutenant Jiwon Kim's voice broke through his thoughts. We've received another message. It's different this time. Jiho snapped his head toward the communications console. Jiwon was staring at the screen, her face pale. What do you mean, different? It's a sequence, Giwon said, her fingers typing rapidly. A series of symbols. Not just the pattern we saw before. But it's not any language we've encountered. It's more complex, almost like a puzzle. Could this be a response? Or was it just another sign of hostility? His military training told him to prepare for the worst, but his growing doubts urged him to think more carefully. Can we analyze it? Jiho asked. We're trying, Jiwon replied. But we don't have enough time. If they're preparing for something, we need to act fast. Jiho exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. Get Dr. Park on the line. I need to speak to her. It didn't take long for Dr. Mingi Park to arrive at the bridge, her face full of concern. As the ship's xenobiologist, she had been working tirelessly to understand the Janara and their technology. Jiho knew that she was one of the few people who could help make sense of the mess they had found themselves in. Captain Dr. Park said, stepping up to the console, I've been studying the pattern. It's unlike anything I've seen. But I believe it's an attempt at communications, something far more advanced than our own systems. Jiho watched her closely. You still think this is peaceful? After everything that's happened? Dr. Park hesitated. I do, but the more I study the symbols, the more I realize that there's a level of intelligence behind it that we simply don't understand yet. We've been looking at this all wrong. Jiho clenched his jaw. So what do we do now? I think Dr. Park said carefully, We need to try and communicate in a way that shows we're not a threat. If we keep up with this military stance, we'll make things worse." Jiho's gaze hardened. "I didn't have a choice. They targeted us first." "That may be true," Dr. Park agreed. "But it's possible they weren't targeting us at all. Maybe it was an accidental signal, a misunderstanding." Jiho shook his head. "I can't afford to second-guess myself now. If they're attacking, we need to be ready to defend Earth. I'll order a full defensive posture." Dr. Park frowned. "Captain, please listen. I know this is hard, but we may have misunderstood their signals. If we continue down this path, we may lose any chance of a peaceful resolution." Jiho felt his frustration rising, but he knew that Dr. Park had a point. He had to consider all possibilities. But with the Janara's ship still in Earth's space, and with no clear answers coming from the alien vessel, it was hard to see another way forward. "I'll order a temporary ceasefire," Jiho said after a long pause. "But I'm not taking any chances. We'll stay on high alert. If they make a move, we're ready." Dr. Park nodded, though her expression remained one of deep concern. "I'll continue analyzing the message. We have to find a way to decode it completely. It's the only way to understand what they really want." Jiho gave a tight nod and turned to Lieutenant Ji-won. "Make sure the crew is informed. We're holding position, but we'll prepare for any scenario." Gi-won saluted and began to relay orders to the rest of the ship. As she worked, Jiho found his thoughts drifting back to the strange symbols on the screen. Could it really be a mistake? Had the Janara not fired on them because they wanted to defend themselves, but because they had misunderstood their own intentions? It was a chilling thought, one that made him second-guess everything he had done. As the hours passed, the atmosphere on the bridge grew tense. The crew watched nervously as the alien ship remained in place, unmoving. No signs of aggression. No attempts to communicate further. Just silence. It felt like waiting for a storm to break. And Jiho couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Dr. Park returned to the bridge. After several hours of working in the lab, she was carrying a tablet, her face serious but hopeful. "Captain," she said, "I've made a breakthrough. I believe I've decoded part of the signal." Jiho straightened up in his chair. "What did it say?" Dr. Park tapped the screen, and a series of symbols appeared in front of Jiho. Slowly, she began to explain. "It's a mathematical sequence, not a language in the traditional sense. But it's clear now that it's not hostile. It's an invitation, a request for dialogue." Jiho blinked, his mind struggling to process the words. "An invitation?" he repeated, almost disbelieving. "Yes," Dr. Park said. "It's like a formal gesture, an attempt to establish communication in a way that makes sense to their species. They didn't fire on us because they wanted to fight. They fired because they thought we were a threat, just as we did to them." Jiho's stomach twisted. "So we're the aggressors?" "It seems so," Dr. Park confirmed. "They've been waiting for us to make the first move. But because we attacked first, it threw everything off. They're confused, just like we are." Jiho rubbed his forehead, a headache building from the weight of the situation. "What do they want from us now?" "I'm not sure," Dr. Park admitted. "But they're waiting for us to respond to the invitation. If we don't, we risk further misunderstanding. We need to act quickly." Jiho stood up from his seat, his mind racing. He had made the decision to strike first, and now he had to deal with the consequences. If there was any chance of salvaging this encounter, he had to take the next step carefully. "I'll call for a meeting with the council," Jiho said, his voice steady. "We'll figure out what to do next. But no matter what happens, we need to be prepared for anything." Dr. Park nodded. "I'll continue working on the message. We have to be ready for whatever comes next." As Jiho left the bridge to prepare for the council meeting, he couldn't shake the feeling that things were spiraling out of control. The Janara were out there, and now humanity had a choice to make. Would they listen to the invitation? Or would they continue down a path of aggression that could lead to war? He didn't know the answer yet, but he knew one thing for sure. The first contact had already gone wrong, and it might be too late to fix it. Captain Jiho Lee stood at the front of the command room, staring out at the vastness of space. The Janara ship was still there, silent and unyielding. It hadn't moved since the attack. The first strike? The one he had ordered without hesitation. Now, with no clear answers, the ship hung in space like a reminder of his doubt. His regret? Minutes turned to hours, and still, nothing changed. No enemy assault. No attempt at communication. Only silence. Captain Lieutenant Ji-won Kim spoke up from her station. "We've received a new message from the Janara. It's coming from their ship." Ku turned toward the console. "Show me." Gi-won's fingers flew over the controls, and the screen flickered. A series of symbols appeared this time, even more complex than before. Ji-ho frowned. They were evolving, shifting, almost as if the Jinara were trying to refine their message. "How do we decode this one?" Gi-ho asked, his voice tight with uncertainty. "It's harder this time," Ji-won replied. "The signal has changed. We'll need more time." "Time is something we don't have," Ji-ho said, his voice heavy. "We can't just wait. The Janara aren't giving us any clear answers. We've been attacked once already, and we need to prepare for what's next." Ji-won hesitated. "Captain, I understand. But what if this is just another misunderstanding? The last message we received, Dr. Park said it was an invitation. What if we're making the same mistake again?" Ji-ho's hand clenched into a fist. He didn't like the doubt creeping into his mind. He'd been a soldier for too long to second-guess himself, but there was something about this encounter that felt wrong. "If we don't act now, it could be too late," Ji-ho muttered. "We don't know what the Janara will do next. We need to be ready for everything." Dr. Mingi Park entered the room, her face pale, as if she had just come from the science lab. "Captain, I've been analyzing the new message. It's even more complex than the last one, but there's a clear pattern emerging. This time, I think I understand part of it." Ji-ho turned to face her. "What does it say?" Dr. Park's eyes darted to the screen. "It's like they're trying to establish communication, but they're doing it through symbols, almost like a code. They want to understand us, but they don't know how to communicate without creating more confusion." Ji-ho's frustration was building. "So they've been trying to talk to us all along, and we're just missing it because we can't decode their language." Dr. Park nodded. "Yes, it's not an attack. It's an invitation. But it's complicated. They might be using a form of communication that's so advanced, we don't even recognize it. The mistake we made was assuming it was an attack when it wasn't." Ji-ho's face softened, but the weight of the situation didn't ease. "I ordered that strike. I thought we were under attack, but now I'm realizing we might have just ruined everything." "What happens now, Dr. Park?" "What do we do?" "We need to reach out to them again," Dr. Park replied softly. "We need to show them that we want to understand. But this time, we have to be careful. We can't keep acting like they're the enemy. We have to take the first step, and we need to do it now." Ji-ho felt a knot in his stomach. "But what if we're too late? What if they think we're a threat now? What if it's already too late to fix things?" "We can't know that until we try," Dr. Park said. "I think they still want to communicate. But we have to reach out before they decide we're beyond saving." Ji-ho exhaled slowly, trying to push down the rising panic. "All right, I'll send a message. But I want the crew to stay on high alert. If they make a move, we won't hesitate again." Dr. Park nodded, her expression a mix of hope and fear. "I'll keep working on decoding the rest of the message. There's still so much we don't understand." Ji-ho turned back to Ji-won. "Send the message. Tell the Janara we're ready to communicate." As Ji-won relayed the order, Ji-ho couldn't help but wonder what the future held. If they didn't find a way to make this right, humanity could be on the brink of a war with an alien species they barely understood. He had to make the right call now more than ever. Hours passed with little response. The crew continued their work, hoping that the Janara would respond in kind. But the silence felt heavier as time went on. Every minute that passed without any sign of action felt like a ticking clock. Dr. Park came back to the command center, her face tired but determined. "Captain, I've found something. The Jinarad, they're not waiting for us to understand their symbols. They're waiting for us to give them something in answer. They want us to show them that we're willing to cooperate." Ji-ho looked up sharply. "Cooperate? How do we do that?" We don't even know what they want from us. I'm not sure, Dr. Park said. But the message, it's like a test. They're looking for signs that we're not just a threat. They want to know if we can be trusted, if we'll engage with them on their terms. Jiho's mind raced. So what do we do now? We have to stop thinking like soldiers. We need to think like diplomats, Dr. Park explained. We need to show them we're willing to listen, even if we don't fully understand their language yet. It's the only way to break the cycle of fear. Jiho rubbed his temples, feeling the pressure mounting. His military instincts told him to take control, to prepare for the worst. But something in Dr. Park's words resonated with him. If humanity was going to survive this, they needed to take a leap of faith and trust that the Janara weren't out to destroy them. All right, Cho said after a long pause. We'll make contact again. But this time, I want a full communication protocol. I want to try everything we can to make this right. Understood, Dr. Park replied, her eyes filled with determination. I'll work with the science team to refine the message and see what else we can learn. As Jiho left the command center to prepare for the next stage of communication, he couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. Would the Janara accept their offer? Would they see humanity as a threat or as a potential ally? He didn't know. All he could do was hope that their second chance wouldn't slip away. Captain Jiho Lee stood near the observation window of the Terra Nova, his gaze fixed on the alien ship that hovered just beyond the edge of the atmosphere. The Janara vessel was silent, unmoving, and its soft, glowing lights seemed to mock the tension that gripped him. Every passing moment made the uncertainty in his chest grow heavier. The decision he had made to reach out, to communicate, felt like a fragile hope, one that could shatter at any moment. He couldn't shake the nagging fear that it might already be too late. The first strike had been fired. The invitation had been extended. Now, all they could do was wait. Captain, Lieutenant Jiwon Kim's voice broke through his thoughts. The Janara. They've responded. Jiho turned sharply, his eyes narrowing. What do you mean they've responded? We received a signal, Jiwon said, her fingers moving quickly over the console. It's a request for a direct connection. They want to speak to you. Jiho felt a wave of relief wash over him. A request for a direct connection. This was it, the moment of truth. Patch it through, Jiho ordered, his voice steady but filled with anticipation. Moments later, the screen flickered to life, and a face appeared on the screen alien, but not so different from what Jiho had imagined. The Janara were tall, their features sharp and angular. Their skin shimmered with a faint iridescence, their eyes large and luminous. The being on the screen was unlike any human he had ever seen, but there was an unmistakable intelligence in its gaze. I am Iza, the Janara spoke, its voice soft yet firm. It was difficult to understand the alien's tone at first, but Jiho could sense that the creature was perhaps even curious. Iza, Jiho replied, his voice measured. I am Captain Jiho Lee, commander of the Terra Nova. We are here to communicate. There was a long pause before Isa responded. We are aware of your actions. Your people attacked first. We understand your fear, but you must understand ours as well. We came not to harm, but to ask, to learn, to find peace. Jiho felt his chest tighten at the mention of the attack. It was difficult to hear the truth. His actions had caused the Janara to fear humanity, to distrust them. But it was clear that Isa was not angry. There was no malice in the alien's words, only a deep, sorrowful understanding. I acted out of defense, Jiho said quietly. We thought you were a threat. We did not know your intentions. I regret the attack. You do not understand, Isa replied, the voice coming through the speaker, calm but filled with sadness. Your actions have broken something. Trust is fragile, Captain. It is not so easily repaired. Jiho looked down, feeling the weight of those words. He had acted out of fear for Earth, for his crew, for everything he had sworn to protect. But now he saw how fragile everything truly was. A single mistake, a moment of hesitation or fear, had the potential to undo years of progress, years of peace. I understand, Jiho said softly. But what do you want from us now? How do we fix this? How do we earn your trust? Iza's eyes flickered with what could only be described as sadness. There is no simple answer. Trust is earned through actions, not words. You must prove that you are willing to listen, that you are willing to understand us as we have tried to understand you. Then we'll do that, Jiho said, his voice firm with resolve. We'll do whatever it takes to fix this. The Jinara remained silent for a moment, as if considering his words. You must show us that you can listen, that you are not driven only by fear. Only then will there be a chance for peace. Jiho nodded, the burden of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He wasn't sure how they would earn the Jinara's trust. He didn't even know where to begin, but he knew that he had to try. We will listen, he said. We will do what it takes. Essa seemed to study him for a moment longer, before nodding slowly. We will give you time. But know this, time is not infinite. We will wait. But you must prove yourselves before we are forced to make another decision. The transmission ended abruptly, the screen flickering back to the quiet, empty space outside. Jiho stood motionless for a moment, his mind racing. They had spoken to the Jinara, and it seemed that they still had a chance. But the Jinara were right, time was running out. And trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. Captain, what now? Guan asked, her voice hesitant. What do we do next? Jiho exhaled slowly, his thoughts still whirling. We do what they asked. We show them we're willing to listen. We do everything we can to build trust. But we also need to prepare. We don't know how long we have. Juan nodded. Understood. Jiho turned to Dr. Park, who had been standing quietly near the back of the room, her eyes focused on the screen. Dr. Park, he said, I want you to continue decoding their messages. We need to understand everything we can about their language, their culture, everything. Dr. Park nodded. I'll get started right away. We have to make sure we're ready for whatever comes next. Jiho looked out the window again, his mind working through the implications of everything that had happened. The Jinara were not their enemies. That much was clear. But how much damage had already been done? How could they rebuild what had been broken in a single moment? As the hours passed, Jiho found himself lost in thought. The Jinara's words echoed in his mind. Trust is fragile. The weight of those words felt like a stone in his chest, heavy and unyielding. He had broken the trust of an entire species. And now it was up to him, to all of humanity, to find a way to fix it. Captain Jiho sat in his chair, staring out at the vastness of space. The Terra Nova had been holding position near the Jinara ship for hours now. And yet the tension in the air only grew heavier with time. The Jinara had given them a chance to prove that humanity wasn't a threat, but Jiho couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Dr. Park had been working non-stop, studying every signal and pattern the Jinara had sent. But every time they thought they were close to understanding something, another layer of complexity was uncovered. The Jinara's communication method was far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. And as much as Jiho wanted to believe they could make peace, the reality was that they were still in the dark. Captain Jiwon Kim's voice broke through the silence. We've received a new message. It's urgent. Jiho stood up, his heart racing. Show me. The screen flickered to life, and once again, Isa appeared. Her face was calm, but there was a tension in her eyes. Captain Lee, she began, her voice low, time is running out. Your people have shown that you can learn, but you have not yet proven that you can be trusted. Jiho's stomach twisted. He had feared this moment. Essa, we are doing everything we can. We are trying to understand your people. Please, give us more time. Isa's expression softened, but only slightly. We have given you time. Your actions have consequences. You must prove that you can control yourselves, that you are not driven by fear and aggression. If you fail, we will have no choice but to defend ourselves. And your world will suffer for it. The words hit Jiho like a slap. We don't want war. We don't want to hurt you. We just didn't know how to respond. But we're trying. We're trying to show you that we can be peaceful. Isa looked at him for a long moment, her eyes searching. We will give you one final chance. But know this. If you fail, we will not hesitate. We will defend ourselves. And when we do, you will not be able to stop us. The transmission ended abruptly, and the screen went dark. Jiho stood there, frozen, as the weight of Iza's words sank in. This was it, the last chance. If humanity failed now, it would mean the end of any chance for peace with the Jinara. Captain Juan said quietly, "What do we do now?" Jiho turned to face her, his face grim. "We do what we should have done from the start. We show them that we can be trusted. We show them that we want peace, not war." He looked at Dr. Park, who had been standing quietly in the back. "Dr. Park, I need you to decode everything we can. Find any piece of information we've missed. We need to understand them, truly understand them, before we make any more mistakes." Dr. Park nodded. "I'll keep working. We're not giving up, Captain." Jiho paced back and forth, his mind spinning. The Jinara had given them a chance, but he knew that it was slipping away. He had to find a way to make things right. He had to find a way to prove to them that humanity wasn't the enemy. As the hours dragged on, Jiho's thoughts kept returning to the same question. What if it's already too late?